Clark freezes. The hallway is narrow, lit only by the flicker of a dying bulb. Shadows stretch across the peeling walls like long, bony fingers. The girl's whisper hangs in the air. Fragile, trembling, true. Instinct should have driven him back out the door, but fear has a way of numbing logic. A cold draft sweeps through the hall. A door at the far end creaks open by itself, slowly like something is drawing breath. Clark doesn't move. His pulse thumps in the silence, echoing louder than his footsteps ever could. He had been warned by friends, by strangers, by fate itself, and now by a child who should have been asleep at this hour. The girl steps back into the shadow, almost melting into it. Only her eyes remain visible, wide, terrified, begging him to understand. But he doesn't, not fully, not yet. Clark takes a hesitant step forward. The wooden floor complains beneath him. Another step, then another. The hallway seems to stretch, elongate, as though the house itself is shifting around him. When people speak of danger, they imagine something loud. A roar, a scream, a crash. But the real dangers, the ones that change a life forever, they arrive silently. A faint sound emerges from inside the apartment. Something soft scraping across the floor. Not hurried, not clumsy, deliberate. Clark's breath shortens. He reaches for the doorknob he has touched 1,000 times before, when it symbolized safety, comfort, routine. Tonight it feels foreign, frozen, almost resisting his hand. The scraping stops. Silence, but not empty silence. Listening silence. He wondered who the warning was truly about. Was it aimed at him? Or at the truth waiting behind that door? The girl peeks out again. Her whisper now barely forms words. He said he'd be back. Before you. He's inside. Clark's chest tightens. He glances down the hall. The way he came, the route he could still take to escape. His muscles twitch with the urge to run. But something roots him in place. Something he cannot abandon. Someone inside this home. Someone who needs him. He turns the knob. It clicks slowly, like a lock being picked from the inside. The door cracks open. Darkness swells into the hall, swallowing the weak light behind him. And so, against every instinct screaming retreat, he entered. The air inside is colder, heavy, thick, as if the room itself is holding its breath. Clark steps in. The door swings shut behind him on its own. A soft thud, a final one. His outline becomes a silhouette swallowed by the dark. Then, a whisper. Close. Too close. But not the girl's voice. A man's. Low. Unfamiliar. You should have listened. Adrian spins, just as a dim lamp flickers to life. A shape stands in the far corner, half hidden, positioned with purpose rather than panic. In that moment, Clark realized two things. First, he was no longer alone in his own home. Second, the warning was not a threat. It was a countdown. The figure shifts, stepping forward just enough for Clark to see the glint of metal. Something not pointed at him, but held with chilling calm. The intruder isn't rushing. He isn't frantic. He is waiting, as though this meeting was planned, expected, inevitable. And what Clark did next would determine not only his fate, but the fate of the girl who warned him, and the person this stranger had come looking for. A breath, a pause, the quietest second of Clark's life. Then, the man speaks again, almost gently. She lied to protect you, but she shouldn't have. The light flickers. Dawn breaks softly over Clark's estate, the kind of morning that pretends nothing in the world could possibly go wrong. Pale gold light slides across manicured lawns, quiet fountains, and the long stone pathway leading to a home built on discipline, routine, and control. Inside the security hub, a guard rubs his eyes and leans closer to one of the monitors. A flicker, barely a twitch in the corner of the master wing camera. The software reacts before he does. A silent alert blooms across the screen. Motion detected. Master wing. No alarm, no sirens. Just a quiet digital whisper. The guard hesitates. Checks the feet again. Nothing moves. Just a neatly made bed, untouched furniture, and long curtains shifting only with the morning breeze. He clears his throat, embarrassed at how his heart jumped. Another guard leans in. Probably the light calibration, he mutters. It happens at sunrise. They silence the alert, and the estate returns to its stillness. Upstairs, Clark Monroe steps out of his bathroom, towel slung over his shoulder, looking like a man who has already accepted today's burdens. He glances at his watch, 5 minutes behind schedule. He hates being off schedule. His phone buzzes. A message from the security hub. Camera flicker detected. Master wing. Logged. No further activity. He exhales slowly. Another glitch. Another reminder that even technology gets tired. He pockets the phone, dismissing the thought as he walks toward the massive windows overlooking the estate. But sometimes, the smallest anomaly is the first sign of a life about to change. A single pixel out of place. A shadow that shouldn't be there. A warning too quiet to notice. Clark sips his coffee, scanning the lawn with the casual confidence of a man who believes he has prepared for every threat. The kind of man who trusts his gates, his protocols, his instincts. He never sees the faint shimmer on the lower corner of the glass. Something barely visible unless you look for it. Something not caused by the sun. Something on the inside. Down in the hub, the first guard scrolls through old logs, more out of boredom than caution. He freezes when he sees it. The same alert. Same time. Yesterday. Another alert. Same time. 2 days earlier. He leans closer. Tension creeping up his neck. The flickers. Always from the master wing. Always at dawn. Always dismissed. "Hey," he calls to his colleague, voice low. "Have you seen this pattern?" His partner turns, confused. "Pattern?" The cursor hovers over the timestamps. 3 days. Same minute. Same silent anomaly. The room grows colder. Upstairs, Clark moves through his morning routine, buttoning his shirt, tying his cufflinks, completely unaware that the anomaly is no longer on the cameras alone. In wealthy homes, people worry about the obvious. Break-ins, leaks, detectable threats. But the real dangers are the ones that blend into routine and repeat quietly until someone finally notices. Clark heads toward the door, just as a soft creak echoes behind him. He stops. For a moment, he thinks it's his imagination. Houses this large always make noise. Settling wood, shifting foundations, temperature changes. But this sound was close. Too close. He turns, nothing. The curtains sway slightly. Just the morning breeze, he thinks. He walks on. The creak comes again. This time, from the wardrobe. A place no breeze can reach. And so, as the sun climbed higher, the truth hid in plain sight, waiting for someone, anyone, to stop dismissing the signs. The wardrobe door sits perfectly still. Too still. Clark stares at it longer than he means to, and somewhere, deep inside the carved oak and darkness behind it, something else is waiting. Clark descends the staircase with the rigid grace of a man who has practiced being composed for years. Everything in his home reflects power. High ceilings, marble floors, perfectly curated art pieces, yet nothing feels lived in. It's a house, not a life. He brushes his fingertips along the polished railing, more out of habit than emotion. Every surface feels cold, untouched, preserved. A staff member offers a respectful greeting as he passes. "Good morning, sir." He nods, polite but distant. It's not arrogance. It's something emptier. He steps into his private office, sleek, minimalist, and painfully silent. The large screen on the wall displays upcoming board meetings, investor calls, quarterly expectations. Rows of numbers, tasks that should excite him. Instead, he stares at them with the expression of a man examining an X-ray of someone else's life. Clark Monroe had everything the world claimed to value: influence that moved markets, wealth that eclipsed nations, power that opened any door. And yet, not a single room in his home felt truly his. He opens an email from his board, another request for his presence, another strategic decision only he can make. He closes it without reading further. Another notification, an invitation to a charity gala. He scoffs softly. A gala. Another parade of people pretending to care while admiring their own reflections in polished glass. He used to attend these events with enthusiasm, back when he believed philanthropy could fill the silence in his life. Now it feels like performance, empty applause, cameras flashing on hollow gestures. His jaw tightens. When success becomes routine, even triumph loses its taste. And for Clark, every accomplishment felt like checking boxes on a life he no longer recognized. On the far wall, framed under soft lighting, hangs the only object that breaks the sterile atmosphere. A portrait of his mother. Warm eyes, gentle smile, a kindness that feels almost out of place in this house of steel and marble. Clark's gaze softens. He steps closer, tracing the frame with a familiar ache. "You'd tell me what I'm missing," he murmurs, his voice barely audible. He stands there for a long moment, letting the world slow around him. It's the only time he looks human. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just a man who lost the one person who ever understood him. Downstairs, a soft chime signals another reminder, another meeting he's already late for. But he doesn't move. He built an empire from nothing, but abandoned his heart in the process. A man surrounded by everything, yet haunted by a loneliness so vast, even his wealth could not reach its edges. A silence settles around him, a silence that feels watched. For a moment he senses something in the air, a presence he can't name. He glances toward his office doorway. Empty. He turns back to the portrait. Only the quiet eyes of his mother stare back. But somewhere else in the house, in a dark corner he hasn't checked, someone else is listening. Night settles over the estate quietly, the kind of stillness that magnifies even the smallest sound. Clark finishes a late conference call, removes his tie, and steps into the dim corridor leading to his private wing. The house is massive, but tonight it feels close, heavy. He pauses at the base of the hallway. Something feels different, not dangerous, just off, like a picture slightly crooked. He tells himself it's exhaustion. But then, a soft tap echoes from somewhere upstairs. Not loud, not sharp, just a gentle, almost hesitant sound, like fingertips brushing wood. He stops mid-step, listens. Silence. He exhales slowly, pushing away the instinctive tension gathering in his muscles. Houses this large make noises, temperature shifts, settling frames, the usual explanations. But as he continues forward, another sound drifts down the hallway, a whisper. So faint he can't make out words, if it even was words. It could have been air shifting, or fabric, or imagination. He stands still, ears straining. Again, nothing. He forces a short laugh under his breath. "You're tired, Clark. That's all." He heads into his bedroom, the lights rising gradually with soft automation. Everything appears untouched, perfectly arranged, exactly as he left it. And yet, the wrongness lingers, a subtle disturbance in the air. He rubs his temples and approaches the bedside console where his home's security interface rests. No reason to feel uneasy, he tells himself. Just check the system, reassure yourself, go to sleep. He taps the screen. Every room shows as secured, every door locked, every sensor green, except one. A small yellow icon blinks in the corner of the display. Master closet. Open. Clark frowns. He hadn't opened that door today. A closet door could drift ajar from airflow, sure. Maybe the latch didn't fully catch. Rational explanations exist, but the system shouldn't be triggered by a tiny gap. It logs deliberate openings. A full shift in position. He stares at the alert longer than necessary. For a man who trusted data more than people, this single anomaly felt like a whisper against his spine. Clark clears the alert, but his hand hesitates over the console as if waiting for it to reappear. It doesn't. Still, he feels that wrongness again, like air moving behind him. He turns abruptly. Nothing. The room is still, silent, familiar, too familiar. He steps toward the closet, each footfall slow, deliberate. The hallway to it looks darker than usual, though he knows that's just his perception playing tricks on him. He reaches the door. It's slightly ajar, barely an inch, a thin line of shadow splitting the frame. He places his hand on the handle. For a moment he hesitates, not out of fear, but uncertainty. Something deep inside him says this isn't about a door or a sensor glitch. Something is shifting in his home, in his life. In the silence he has built around himself for years, he inhales, opens the closet door with a controlled pull, and stops. The clothes sway slightly as if disturbed minutes ago, and a faint, unfamiliar scent lingers in the air. Not perfume, not cleaning chemicals, something human, something out of place. His heartbeat, normally steady through crises and quarterly disasters, rises. It was a small thing, a door barely open, but sometimes the first sign of change arrives not with a crash, but with the softest breath in the dark. Clark scans the space, eyes narrowing, every instinct sharpening. He sees nothing, but he no longer feels alone. Clark stands at the threshold of the walk-in closet, the motionless air wrapping around him like a warning. His eyes adjust slowly, tracing the familiar outlines of suits and shelves, until a shape breaks the symmetry. Small, huddled, human. He freezes. In the far corner, pressed tightly between a row of coats and the wall, a girl is crouched on the floor. A teenager, maybe 14. Her knees pulled to her chest, her arms wrapped around them as though holding herself together. Her clothes are worn thin, dirt smudged along the seams. Her shoes, if they even qualify as shoes, are torn at the sides. Her face is streaked from dried tears, eyes swollen, cheeks flushed from hours of fear. She looks up, startled by the sound of the door opening. But she doesn't lunge. She doesn't scream. She doesn't run. Instead, she lifts a shaking hand toward him, palm outward in a tiny, terrified gesture. A plea. Please, don't turn on the lights. Her voice is a broken whisper. Not rehearsed, not manipulative, just raw, instinctive fear. The kind of fear someone develops after living too long in shadows. Clark stands absolutely still, every instinct shifting in an instant, from tension to concern. She isn't armed. She isn't threatening anyone. She's not hiding something. She is hiding herself. His mind flips through 1,000 questions. How did she get in? How long has she been here? Why his house? But none of them matter in this moment. What matters is the way her fingers tremble, the way her breathing stutters, the way she flinches when the hallway light spills even slightly toward her. He slowly raises both hands in a gesture of peace. It's okay, he says softly. I'm not turning anything on. The closet is dim, lit only by the faint ambient glow from the hallway, enough to see shapes, not faces. Maybe that's why she chose it. Darkness as shelter, not threat. She keeps her eyes on him, her body coiled like someone who expects pain at any moment. But Clark doesn't step closer. He just lowers himself, carefully, into a crouch to match her height, keeping distance, keeping calm. No sudden movements, no loud tones. A quiet space for a frightened child to breathe. The girl's shoulders shake, though she tries to hide it beneath her arms. Her voice comes again, barely audible. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please. I didn't touch anything. I just needed... She stops, swallowing hard. Somewhere no one would see me. The apology cracks something in him. She isn't defensive. She isn't making excuses. She's bracing for consequences, whatever she believes they might be. Not every intrusion is an act of defiance. Sometimes it's the last refuge of someone with nowhere left to go. Clark notices now. Her breathing is shallow. Her eyes dart to the corners, not looking for escape, but for threats only she can imagine. He speaks quietly. You're not in trouble. You're safe. No one is going to hurt you. The girl closes her eyes at the word hurt, as if the sound alone carries weight. A moment passes, a long, fragile moment in which neither of them moves. Then, very slowly, her grip on her knees loosens, just a little. Her shoulders drop by a fraction, not trust, just exhaustion overriding fear. Clark shifts slightly, making sure the hallway light doesn't fall on her. No questions yet, not until she's steady enough to answer them. For years, Clark had dismissed the quiet spaces in his home as empty. Tonight, he discovered one of them held a story, one that had been hiding in the dark long before he opened the door. The girl wipes at her eyes with the back of her sleeve, leaving streaks of dust across her cheeks. She whispers again, this time barely shaped into words. "I didn't mean to be found." Her voice cracks, not from guilt, but from the terror of what discovery usually means in her world. Clark draws a slow breath, steady and deliberate, as a realization settles heavily over him. This wasn't a break-in. This wasn't a crime. This was a child running from something far worse than the consequences of being here. And his life, silent, controlled, predictable, had just collided with a story he never thought would cross his threshold. A story that had been waiting in the dark, for him. Before Clark can say another word, footsteps thunder down the hall. A security officer appears first, hand already on his holster, face locked in alert mode. Another follows, then a third. They see Clark crouched near the closet. They see the shadow of someone inside. An instinct takes over. Two beams of tactical flashlights sweep forward. Too bright, too sudden, too sharp. The girl reacts instantly, not with aggression, not with defiance, but with pure, conditioned terror. She folds into herself, arms over her head, body shaking so violently the coats beside her tremble. A tiny, broken cry escapes her. "No, no, please, not again, please." Clark's voice cuts through the chaos like steel. "Stand down!"
It's okay.
The urgency in his tone freezes the room. Lights drop, hands retreat, boots shift back in uncertainty. The officers rarely hear Clark speak sharply. When he does, it means only one thing. Stop immediately. Clark lifts a hand to keep them back. "She's terrified," he says, quieter now but still firm. "Not armed, not a threat. Everyone, step outside." The guards exchange hesitant looks. Protocol says secure the intruder. Clark's tone says listen to him. They fall back to the hallway, though unease lingers in their posture. One stays by the door, eyes scanning the room behind Clark, as if expecting danger to spill out. Clark turns back to the girl. Her breathing is ragged, each inhale a fight, each exhale a tremor. She won't look at him, won't uncurl, won't move, just keeps whispering the same plea over and over, voice numb with fear. "Please, not the lights. Please." The repetition has a rhythm, not sloppy or random, but practiced, like something she's been forced to say many times before. Clark lowers himself back down, careful, deliberate. His body blocks what little light spills from the hallway. His shadow shelters her. "You're safe," he says softly. "No lights, I promise." No change. But he can tell she heard him, the way her posture tightens at the sound of his voice, then eases just a fraction. She's listening. She just doesn't believe him yet. "Look at me," he murmurs gently. Nothing. So he changes approach. "No one in this house will hurt you. Not now, not ever. I won't allow it." A pause, a long one. Finally, her fingers unclench slightly from her hair, just enough to show she's registering his tone, not his words. Clark glances toward the officers still hovering in the hallway, like shadows cast by tension. "Back up another 5 feet, he instructs without looking away from the girl. "You're scaring her." They obey reluctantly. Training can prepare a guard to handle danger, but nothing prepares them to witness fear that runs this deep. The girl tries to take a breath, but sobs halfway through it. Not loud, not messy, just a sound of a heart that's learned silence as survival. Clark softens his voice again. "You're not in trouble." For the first time, she shakes her head, a tiny tremor. I shouldn't be here," she whispers through trembling lips. "I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He shakes his head. "You've done nothing wrong." Her eyes stay shut, tears slipping from beneath her lashes. She whispers again, "Please, not the lights." It's barely sound anymore, more breath than words. Clark feels a cold understanding settle into his bones. This isn't about brightness, or suddenness, or eyes adjusting. This fear is associated with something or someone, The request isn't about comfort, it's about safety. She wasn't hiding from a house. She wasn't hiding from the people in it. She was hiding from whatever taught her that light meant pain. Clark leans slightly closer, keeping his movements slow, open, controlled. No lights, he repeats. I promise you're safe in the dark. We can stay right here if you need. A pause, her breathing steadies, barely, but enough to notice. Her shoulders don't shake as violently. Her fingers unclench from her hair. For the first time since he found her, she lifts her head fractionally. Only enough for her tear-slicked eyes to peek through the shadows of her arms. Not fully, just a glance. A silent question hangs in them. Is he telling the truth? Clark meets her eyes without pity. Without pressure, just calm presence. You're safe, he repeats gently. You have my word. In that dim, quiet closet, compassion stood between fear and a child who had forgotten what safety felt like. The girl's breath hitches, but not from panic this time. For the first time, it sounds like relief trying to break through the wall she's built. And Clark, in all his wealth, his power, his complicated solitude, feels something shift inside him. Not fear, not confusion, but responsibility. A responsibility he didn't choose, but cannot walk away from. Because now he knows. Whoever this girl is, whatever she's running from, she didn't break into his home to cause harm. She came here to survive. Clark waits until her breathing evens out, still shaky, still fragile, but no longer spiraling. He keeps his hands visible, keeps his posture low, keeps his voice steady. Can you tell me your name? He asks gently. Silence. The kind of silence where a child weighs whether speaking is safe at all. Then her lips part, barely. Lena. The name is soft, like she's afraid even that will be taken from her. Clark nods, slow and reassuring. Okay, Lena. Thank you for telling me. Behind him, the guards exchange glances. The tension is thick enough to feel. Protocol says they need to alert authorities. He can sense their hesitation. Duty fighting with the obvious distress in front of them. One of the guards steps forward slightly. Sir, he says quietly, should we call? He doesn't finish the sentence, but Clark knows exactly what he means. Authorities, child services, police, a normal suggestion, a responsible one. But the moment Lena hears it, her entire body goes rigid. Her eyes snap wide, the terror immediate and overwhelming. She pushes herself deeper into the corner, palms against the wall as though trying to merge with it. No, 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 please. Her breath breaks, hiccuping. You can't. You can't. If I leave, he'll find me. He always does. Please don't make me go. Her panic is raw, instinctive, learned from experience. Not a child trying to escape consequences. A child who has learned to fear help because it didn't come for her before or came in ways that made things worse. Clark raises a hand at the guards, firm, absolute. Stop, he orders. No one calls anyone. Lena's breath rattles in her chest as she tries and fails to steady it. Tears slip down her cheeks, streaking through dust. Clark lowers his voice even more. Lena, listen to me. You're not leaving. Not tonight. You're safe here. She squeezes her eyes shut, head shaking violently. No, if I leave, he'll find me. He always finds me. Clark leans forward slightly, careful not to invade her space. Who? He asks softly. Who is he? A long silence follows, not because she's refusing to answer, but because the truth is heavy, tangled in fear, and wrapped in years of someone else's control. When she finally speaks, her voice is so faint it's almost air. The man who says he owns me. The words land without sensationalism, no graphic detail, no spectacle, just the weight of someone who has lived under another person's control. It hits Clark like ice water, not because it's shocking, but because it's real. Because a child doesn't use a word like own unless someone has taught her exactly what it means to be treated like property. The guards stiffen. Even they feel the shift in the room, away from protocol, towards something more human. Clark's expression changes, not a dramatic reaction, not outrage, but a deep, steady concern, a protective instinct he didn't expect rising through him. Lena, he says carefully, No one owns you. Not here. Not anywhere. She shakes her head again, tears falling harder. You don't understand. He looks for me. I wasn't supposed to run. He said if I ever did, she can't finish. Her throat closes around the memory. Clark feels something settle into him, a resolve, quiet but unmistakable. Narrator, measured, compassionate. She wasn't describing a villain from fiction. She was describing a reality too many children live unseen. A reality hidden behind closed doors, behind fear, behind power. Clark turns slightly to face the guards. His voice is low, controlled, but carries a command none of them question. No one touches her, no one takes her anywhere, and no one in this house calls anyone. Not until I say so. The guards nod, stepping back fully now, recognizing the gravity in Clark's tone. He turns back to the girl, softening. Lena. He waits until her gaze flickers toward him. Just a sliver. I'm not sending you away. You're safe here. I promise you that. She studies him through trembling lashes, mistrust and longing warring inside her. Then barely audible. You promise? Clark nods once, with the weight of someone who doesn't make promises lightly. Yes, I promise. The words seem to settle over her like a thin blanket, fragile but warming something inside her. She didn't believe in promises. But for the first time in a long time, she wanted to. Clark stares at the pendant as if time has folded in on itself. The small emblem, his mother's emblem, lies across his palm, warm from Lena's grip, fragile from years of clinging. He swallows, voice lower than before. My mother gave you this. Lena nods, eyes fixed on the floor as if afraid to read his reaction. I kept it hidden, she whispers. All these years. I thought maybe it would stop feeling real. But when things got bad again, I remembered her words. She said you were kind, that you'd grown up different from the others. I hoped. It was stupid. It wasn't stupid, Clark interrupts softly. And for the first time, Lena dares to look at him, just long enough to see that he means it. She explains how she recognized the mansion, volunteer vans, charity events. One summer afternoon where Clark's mother had knelt to wipe sand off her scratched knee and told her she deserved a life that didn't hurt. I didn't even know if you still lived here, Lena admits. But I followed the road, the big gate. I waited until it opened for someone else and I just ran. Clark imagines her slipping through the gaps between wealth and security, a silhouette unnoticed in a world of cameras and perfect hedges. His chest grips. Security stands awkwardly behind him, uncertain, out of place among the emotion. Why didn't you go back to the charity? He asked gently. Lena's face folds, not into tears, but something worse. Shame. The center closed after she passed, she murmurs. The man who took over. He didn't help people like her. He helped people like him. Clark immediately understands. His mother's safety net died with her, and he never even noticed. He had signed off donations, yes, approved board decisions, but he hadn't looked. He hadn't seen the consequences. The guilt hits him hard. Lena twists the pendant between her fingers, almost like a nervous habit. I thought if I came here, maybe someone would remember her. Maybe you'd tell me what to do. Or let me stay until morning. I wasn't going to take anything, I swear. Her voice breaks. I just didn't know where else to go. Clark's reply is steady, anchored, protective. You're here now, he says. Nothing's going to happen to you tonight. Understand? She nods, but her shoulders stay high, tense, as if waiting for the world to prove him wrong. There's a long silence. Thick, heavy, meaningful. The kind that reveals a person more than questions ever could. Clark finally turns to security. Clear the house. No one touches her. No one questions her. She stays under my protection. They nod, stepping back respectfully. But Clark isn't done. He looks at Lena with the kind of focus he usually reserves for billion-dollar crises. My mother helped you once, he says quietly. Let me honor that. Something softens in her expression. Not trust yet, but the faintest flicker of possibility. A life that doesn't hurt, and for the first time in years, Clark feels the mansion shift. Not physically, but emotionally. like a hollow room taking a breath, like warmth returning to a place that forgot it could be warm. He gestures toward the hallway, gentle, not forceful. "Come on," he murmurs. "Let's get you somewhere safe." And Lena, hesitant, fragile, exhausted, rises slowly, clutching the pendant like a promise she's terrified to believe in. But she follows him, because in this house of cold marble and empty silence, Clark Monroe suddenly feels like the only place she has left. They walk down the quiet hallway. Clark a few steps ahead, Lena trailing, clutching the pendant as though it anchors her to the present. But something in her eyes says she's drifting, pulled backward into memories she never asked to revisit. The world around her softens, the hallway blurs, and suddenly, she's small again, barefoot, knees scraped, standing in a community shelter that smelled like warm bread and old books. A gentle voice speaks above her, not loud, not commanding, just steady. "Bravery isn't loud, child. Sometimes it's choosing to walk toward hope." Clark's mother kneels, her hands warm as she ties a makeshift bandage around Lena's leg. The woman's smile is soft and patient, as if she has all the time in the world for a frightened little girl who felt invisible everywhere else. Lena remembers the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the way she spoke to her like she mattered. "You listen to me," she'd whispered. "If you're ever in danger again, and you will know the moment, I want you to find my son. He's stubborn, but he's good. He'll help you, even if the world won't." Lena didn't understand then, but she understands now. And that memory, the one she fought so hard to bury, feels like a lifeline wrapped around her trembling heart. The flashback fades, dissolving into the present. She's back in the mansion. Marble floor, dim lights, silence pressing around them. Clark stops walking. He turns and notices her distant expression, the subtle tightening of her hands around the pendant. "You remembered something," he says quietly. Not as a question, but as a gentle opening. Lena nods. "It was your mother," she whispers. She always looked tired, but never too tired for us. She'd fix broken shoelaces, braid hair, teach us how to read street signs. She wasn't rich, but she made us feel like we had a place in the world, even if it was just for an hour." Clark absorbs that. He can almost see the image. His mother sitting on cold concrete floors, smiling at children who had nothing, offering kindness instead of pity. It hits him harder than any business loss ever had. "You said she helped you once," he murmurs, "but it sounds like she did far more than that." Lena hesitates, then speaks softly. "She was the first person who didn't look at me like a problem." Clark stops breathing for a moment. His mother spent her life tending wounds the world ignored, while he buried himself in boardrooms, trying to outrun his own emptiness. He inherited her wealth, but not her mission. Until now. Lena wipes her eyes with the back of her sleeve. "She told me to find you," she says again, her voice trembling with the weight of destiny. "She said you'd help me one day." I didn't believe her. Not really. But when things got bad again, I remembered her voice, like she was pushing me forward. Clark looks at her differently now, not just as a stranger in need, but as someone carrying a fragment of his mother's legacy. And for the first time, it feels like this moment was never random. Destiny meeting responsibility. A promise passing from one generation to the next. He inhales slowly, deeply. "My mother, she saw people," he says. "Really saw them. I lost that somewhere along the way." Lena studies him, cautious but observant. "You see me," she says quietly. "Maybe you don't realize it, but you do." The words hit something buried deep inside him, an ache he forgot he carried. A flicker of emotion crosses his face. Not dramatic, just honest. "Then I'll keep seeing you," Clark says softly. "You're safe here. That's not a promise I break." Lena's shoulders lower, just a little. The tiniest exhale escapes her lips, close to relief, though she's still afraid to trust it fully. They continue walking. The mansion feels a shade warmer, as though the memory of his mother walks with them. And Clark Monroe, billionaire, strategist, guarded soul, feels something shift inside him. Not an obligation, not a burden, a calling he was supposed to answer all along. A soft buzz breaks the quiet, an incoming alert on Clark's phone. He glances at the screen. A message from the front security gate. Unidentified vehicle parked near the tree line. Engine off. No movement. Possible surveillance. Clark stops mid-hallway. Lena notices the change in his expression before he says a word. Her entire body tightens. Breath caught somewhere between her ribs and her throat. He turns the phone so she can see the message. She doesn't gasp. She doesn't scream. She simply folds inward, like someone bracing for a blow they've learned can come from anywhere. "He found me," she whispers. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's resignation, raw and chilling in its quiet certainty. Clark feels a sharp, unfamiliar protectiveness rise in him. Something instinctive, something immediate. He signals the security team. Lock perimeter. No confrontations yet. But Lena's eyes stay fixed on the floor. Her voice becomes a thread. He doesn't rush. He waits. He watches. That's how he keeps control. The way she says it, calm, almost clinical, tells Clark everything. Whoever this man is, he didn't just hurt her. He trained her to expect danger, even in silence. Security Chief Marcus approaches, voice low. "Sir, we can send a team to check the vehicle." Clark nods, but his attention stays on Lena. "Lena," he says softly, "you're not alone anymore." She swallows, shaking her head. "You don't understand. He always finds me, even when I run, even when people hide me. It never lasts." Clark crouches slightly so he's not towering above her. His tone loses all the corporate sharpness he usually carries. "Look at me." It takes her a moment, but she lifts her eyes, slowly, like she's afraid of what she'll see. "There are protocols here," Clark says. "Systems. People who know how to protect others. And I won't let anyone hurt you." Lena's fingers curl tighter around the pendant. "No one ever stops him," she murmurs. "They try, but he always—" Her voice breaks, but she bites it back. Clark doesn't push. He simply steps closer, placing himself between her and the nearest window, as though the man outside could see her trembling. Security radios crackle in the background. "Approaching vehicle now. No visual on the driver. Windows tinted. Checking license plates. Sir, looks like someone left recently." "Warm hood." Lena's breathing quickens. "He knows you found me," she whispers. "He'll try to take me back. Or punish me. Or punish you for helping." Clark's jaw tightens. He had spent years negotiating billion-dollar deals, arguing with board members, navigating corporate betrayals. Yet none of it felt as personal as this moment. "Let him try," Clark says quietly, firmly. "He'll learn very quickly he chose the wrong property and the wrong girl to hunt." Lena blinks, startled by the conviction in his voice. No one has ever spoken about her like she mattered enough to defend. Not with that kind of certainty. Outside, the wind rustles through the trees. The distant hum of the suspicious vehicle fades. Security reports it's pulling away slowly, disappearing down the hidden service road. Marcus radios again. "Car is leaving the perimeter. No confrontation." Clark releases a slow breath. Lena doesn't. She remains frozen, eyes wide, body stiff. "For now," she says, not hopeful, just aware. Clark gently places a hand near, but not on, her arm. Close enough to offer security, far enough to respect boundaries she's clearly learned through pain. "You're safe here," he repeats, "and you will stay safe here." She studies him again. This man who should be distant, too wealthy, too insulated from struggle. Yet in this moment he feels more like a shield than a stranger. The house settles into a tense quiet. Somewhere in the shadows outside, the echo of the departing car lingers, a reminder that whoever is hunting her isn't gone, just waiting, just watching.